No. Just gonna shut my heart. Move it on the floor. On the floor. Thanks, dude.
Some of them may make it into the game, some may not make it into the game. I'm going to put my engineering hat on here and say, you know, it's under research.
That's good.
Yeah. So remember we were talking about things earlier that some of the things Miguel has been doing for us, and some of the things we find he has done for his own purposes that we found might fit really well with this game. Well, this next one is in that latter category, and that is voxel physics. Yeah. Hopefully you like the video to play. So we'll have Miguel talk about this in a minute, but this is actually coming from his demoing engine. So what would you think if... Oh my God!
Oh! Miguel! Awesome, man. Way to go.
So I'm going to have Miguel talk a little bit about how this works.
It's optional.
Because it's really cool. I want it really soon, but we'll see how fast we get it in there.
Right, so the idea is we want to discover when something is actually standing in air, so it can fall. So we look at the voxels, and we can put some kind of a field flood algorithm, and we can determine when something is not connecting to something else. When that happens, we can delete those voxels from the world, and we can replace it by a mesh. At this point, it's not really voxels anymore, what you're seeing. Just a mesh that it's like a traditional mesh you can feed to a physics engine. So this is why it can fall, it can bounce on things and do other stuff like that. But the really cool part is we know those fragments that actually came from school. They came from voxels. So what it means is that eventually we could break it even more. So you have a fragment that you can break it, and then the fragments that are here, you can break it again and again and again. So that's the idea. We're aiming for that.
Awesome.
Wow.
So, we have some thoughts on how this is going to actually interact with the gameplay. Because obviously you don't necessarily want, you can imagine that great scene with all the starfighters hanging in the sky and such. Just sort of logging in one morning and having all be a bunch of rubble at the bottom of the plane. So, I don't know, Jeff, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, as you can imagine, you wouldn't want to log in and see any of that stuff happen. So, one of the first applications that we could see this used in would be something like PvP. When you saw earlier today, us fighting in the PvP arena, I think it would be pretty cool to be using your spells and your abilities to affect elements of the game, like what you see happening here, where you could blow a bridge out from underneath your buddy and have it fall over and collapse. Pretty amazing stuff.
And crush him.
All right, cool. So that's the first thing. Second thing was hinted at in the building panel earlier as well. Dynamic fluids. So here's an early prototype of what Miguel's been working on for us. We asked about this, I don't know, 6 months ago to try and start working on this. And it's a lot of work, so especially trying to make it work in an MMO engine where everybody's clients have to be displaying this. It's a highly big technical challenge, but we have some demonstration of it here. If I can get the video to play. There it goes. So let's look at this. So I'll have Miguel talk about what's going on here.
So this is a fountain we are building, and we think it would be nice if we get some water running on it. So as you can see, we would drop like a box of water on top.
Water comes in boxes.
And then it's a big challenge to make it happen, make it flow as it should. But what I find interesting about this is it does look kind of water, but it's really just a more generic system. That in this particular case, we're applying for water. The same system could be applied for other things. In essence, this is what is called a cellular automata system. So it could be used to represent something like fire. You could have smoke. Let's say now you have a building. Now you have fire in it. You would need to plan like where the smoke is going to come out. So it's essentially the same system. We could have many different applications for it.
All right, what do you guys think?
Wow.
Well, we're going to try and do our best to make this happen for you guys. And then, Jeff, you want to talk a little about how this might impact the gameplay?
So, as you can imagine, it's not just an issue of water like we see here, but we could be looking for other fluids in the game, lava, what have you. We could be harvesting them, using them in our builds, creating things like waterfalls, so on and so forth. All of that stuff could be very exciting. I'm sure those of you who are working in the game right now can imagine, simply based on what we're looking at here, what you might do with this technology. We're pretty excited about it.
Time for some Q&A.
Some more questions. Now, I know nobody has any questions about any of this stuff that they were talking about right there, right? All right, line up here. Just like we did the last panel. We have 12 minutes before we have to be done. So we'll try to get to as many questions as we can.
So, Terry, while people are lining up, there's just one thing that I'd like to say. Both Miguel and Steve are here today, and they're only representatives of larger teams of guys that work on this technology. But there was something that was very important to me personally to say. Over the course of the years that we've been working on this game, Steve and his team, Miguel and his team, have worked tirelessly to take our crazy designer ideas, the stuff that we wanted to put into a game that would blow you away, and make those things a reality. I want to thank them. I want to take the time to thank them, and I would ask you to join me in thanking them for their time.
Woo!
This is all possible. Their patience, their vision. Thank you.
And Jeff, from the rest of the team, thank you and the design team for being crazy enough to ask for this stuff.
There's no way we would have done this on our own.
About the animation in the voxels when you like with the gravity and everything, we saw that it can be animated in this case. Would that be able to be applied on the script-based.com like later for Landmark?
You mean like scripting blowing up a wall, or
more like windmills and stuff like that. Like we saw like chunks of voxels.
Oh yeah, you'd probably be doing that with a prop rather than with voxels, because like Miguel said, the voxels aren't actually moving. You're actually turning it into a mesh and turning it. Now it is possible that we could do that. We've talked about the possibility of building props out of voxels, but that's a whole separate thing that's kind of often R&D land at the moment.
It's one of the things that we'll be investigating. As Miguel can speak to it, Steve can speak to it, it's a very complicated process. It's very expensive. So we want to make sure to use it in the right kind of way. So we'll talk about that and see what we can do. Thank you.
One of the issues I've been finding that as I try and build stuff is I can build half of it on this side, and I can literally do exactly the same thing on this other side, and I can completely come out with a different shape. And it's exactly the same tools in exactly the same way.
It's a bug. It is a bug. We're constantly. It's a good news, but it's a bug. It means it's not a systemic issue, so we can fix it. It's a matter of time.
You know, obviously getting reproduction steps on when you see that sort of thing, we can take a look at it. We have found a number of those already. For example, recently we fixed one that had to do with clipboards, and it wasn't treating the neighbor voxels symmetrically on both sides. That was fixed. But yes, Miguel's right. It's probably a bug. So just report this to repro steps and we can look at it.
Earlier you were talking about the point lights and being able to actually overlap them. Is there any way to actually go in there and actually do point light cancellation, where if one sees the other, it just stops?
Yeah, so what you're talking about there, I think, is what it's called light combining, where basically it automatically adjusts the radiuses of the radii of the lights to keep them from overlapping. And it's certainly something we'll be investigating, a sort of optimization path, which we haven't got to yet. I don't think you meant that they were actually canceling light. You have darkness.
Just only applying one instead of applying multiple.
Yeah, it does make the light look a little bit different than what you were intending, so we haven't quite done that yet. But
with regard to the voxels to mesh tech, would that be necessary for things to
turn hard objects into stretchable, bounceable things that actually have their own internal animations. Everything is very solid today. Is it possible to make things that move and jiggle? You used the blue jello idea earlier, and it seemed like that would be a necessary, obvious next step.
There's a couple different layers there. I mean, it harkens back to the question that was asked a question ago about essentially whether can you create props. It's essentially what you're asking. But then you're also asking, can you actually create props that internally animate? So that's like, level of complexity 10 and then level of complexity 100 and then a level, so it gets much, much harder and harder for each one of the steps. All stuff that we'd love to do, but we don't have any current plans for it at the moment.
Well, and part of that, because we showed on one of the live streams back when we were first putting water in the game, when we were putting the oceans in, we actually took that material that we were using in the ocean and we painted with it, and you actually got wavy. If you guys saw the live stream, you got struts and parts of buildings that were wavy, so that there was actually like that sort of Jello-esque movement inside the material.
Yeah, we could do it as material effects, where you have a certain material that you're applying that has a waviness to it. But
as a follow-up, can you change the viscosity of the water so that you can have like quicksand type effects and things like that?
It is possible, certainly.
I had a question was about the physics type engine that's not exactly in the game, or really at the point where you can put it in to a point where it can be used. Would it ever be possible to make it so when you delete the items around it, like a support being at a certain point, like so many voxels have a weight to it, and that there's a support in it, and if you destroy that support, would that be possible for that entire part of that building to fall apart?
Great question.
And destroy everything else near it?
Yeah, I think you're asking a couple questions there, but you're talking about structural stress calculations, like you have a little spindle that's holding up this big building, and whether it will. Miguel can talk about that.
So we're researching that right now. It doesn't necessarily mean it will. It's something that will appear in Landmark. It can be somewhat expensive, but it is much possible, and certainly we want to be there. Maybe in a year or so, this is going to be pretty common in games.
Okay. Very conservative answer. I like it.
Okay, I was building on my plot. I made a mine shaft, and there's 3 entryways that are both blocked off, and one of them was lava, so I used copper. But when I put it in there, it had one thing, but then there was stone going in between one side of the copper and the other side of the copper, even though it was full copper. But when I placed another block on top of the copper, it fixed it. But if I destroyed it, it went back. So I had to keep.
Well, it could be blending or it could be a bug. I'm not quite sure from the description, but.
Yeah, I think it's blending, but I would like that fixed because I had.
Feet to the fire.
He's the only one that can get away with booing here.
Yeah,
I bet you there's probably a way you could fix it by various tweaks that you can do. But if there's, we can try and figure out if there's an actual bug there that may be more systemic than just your one case, then we can go in there and try and resolve it.
By giving this ball.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left for questions, guys.
This one is hopefully pretty quick. Where somebody was asking about you are currently unable to smooth voxels underneath water, and I think it's kind of related to it is a bug and not like okay. And would it be like around the time dynamic water would come in, or no?
No, it's just a separate bug. We would track it in terms of priority like any other bug. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that one. I know there's some issues with trying to get air specifically under the ocean. But yeah, I hadn't heard of the one of not being able to smooth.
I just heard about it yesterday, and so there's already an email back at home for this. So.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
I was wondering if props would be able to have similar interactability with the voxel meshes, like when you blow off part of a building, that the props will stick and point in the places where it was in the voxel mesh and kind of tumble along with it, or the prop's going to kind of stay in place for right now?
Well, it's certainly possible. Since we don't have this tech integrated yet, I'm not sure exactly how difficult that would be, but yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, for right now, they would stay where they were until we have prop destruction, and you might destroy them at the same time, because that's one of the things we're working on.
So, yeah, I mean, there's multiple phases there. You could either have the prop just get destroyed when the stuff around it moves, or actually go moving with the thing that's dropping.
And they're all possible, so we'll investigate.
Just depends how much time it takes to implement.
Hi, I was wondering if eventually with the dynamic water, if there was going to be a dynamic weather system that involved like evaporation and whatnot, and dynamic rain.
Wait, hold on. For those people who know me on EQ, I'm going to bring up the joke that we always talk about is, can water pool from rain? And can snow melt and fall off the roofs of your house? Because everybody's wanted that in every game I have ever worked on.
And then the dandelion seed drifts into the grass.
So to interpretive dancing. But to answer the question, we do want to have a weather system. Now, whether or not it will ever get to the point of being evaporation and things like that, that's something that we'll investigate in the future. That's definitely farther down the road. We need to get weather in the first place.
You can't go
too the rest of the stuff.
You can't go a little too far on the simulation side. You know, it's really fun and interesting, but how much gameplay does that actually add? Right?
Hurricane 1.0.
Hi. I know that there's going to be things with the AIs messing with the world, but are there going to be things like natural disasters? Like volcanoes erupting, earthquakes?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Only when Jeff gets upset. No. Again, it goes sort of like the same question we just had a second ago. It's the how far we go on the simulation of things. Without a doubt, there will be some aspects of that we want in the game. And we'll just have to see how far we can take it as we move on. Does that seem like a fair answer, Steve?
Sure. Make it a nice ability for somebody.
I didn't summon a volcano. That's a good ability. Thank you. All right. We have about 2 minutes left. Sorry, guys.
Hi. Okay, so regarding physics, will the meshes actually be able to affect players or the environment? Like, okay, if I blow off the bridge, then the player falls, but if I blow off the ceiling, will he take falling damage?
Yeah, this is the natural extension to what we've been talking about here. And then the answer is it depends on a number of factors. You have to always have to balance where the processing load is taking place, on the server, on the client. If it's on the client, it's more prone to being hacked by players. If it's on the server, you have to get all of that processing done on that single machine. We'd love it for it to do that kind of thing, but we're still researching how much processing we can manage.
Can we get props that will affect other props? Like if I set off a series of mines, for example, will the first one set off the other?
I believe that Darren, do the landmines do that?
They don't, but that's a triggering system that we're going to be putting in. So
that would fall in.
They'll eventually be able to be set up to do that, I suspect.
Okay, speaking about optimization, it's going to kind of be in 2 parts here, GPU, CPU. We've had arguments on the forums as to which is more important. I'd like to know, which should we focus on? Better graphics cards or better CPUs?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of what we thought.
We have a lot of optimizations coming, and we're always trying to improve the performance of the game. In fact, we just had a discussion before SOELive talking about how once this year for getting all this stuff ready for the show is done, we're going to really start.
Multi-core.
The other part of that is microvoxels. Having a large number of microvoxels in your build, does that create a lag issue due to having to recalculate each one of those?
No, microvoxels are not any different than regular voxels.
Okay, and they just create a mesh. All right, so I think we can get these last 2 questions pretty quick and try to get through these. 2 days ago, we tweeted
you need to work for these guys.
City. Go for it. Called an inverted voxel. It was a door that looked solid and
has a special way you had to move through it. Could you please tell us quickly what is an inverted voxel?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I haven't had a chance to look. I saw the tweet. I haven't looked at it yet.
I think you guys did it using the rolling backside, right? Like you managed to invert the surface, so it was pointing the other way around. So then the physics allow you to go through it.
It basically is causing the, just at first glance, it's causing the surface normals to be inverted so that the physics system thinks that it's impassable. It doesn't, the physics system only looks at one side of the mesh, and so it's allowing you through.
You guys like it?
It's really broken.
Here we go. If this isn't the perfect example of collaborations with players, a player is going to answer this question.
Woo! Denmark!
Okay. Basically, picture a voxel. It has 8 points. You have 4 on top and you have 4 on bottom. If you take the one that's facing you on the top, on this side, and you take that point and you shove it through to the one that's on the back side on this side. And you do that with every single corner in its polar opposite. You have inverted it.
You have broken the game.
I think you discovered time travel.
In the combination of publishing your claim to get a better visual and PvP and allowing someone to destroy your claim, 2 questions. Is your long distance visual still going to show a whole castle when you have half a core left? And will it heal itself over time?
So, a really good question. The PvP damage definitely heals over time. And in fact, I think the way they're set right now is a pretty short amount of time. So, one of the things that probably haven't noticed has really been in context of seeing it is that our distance visuals do not update in real time. The further away they are, the slower they update. So, if somebody blows the top of a mountain, but you're, 3 kilometers away, you won't even notice it because we'll probably have healed by the time it happens. Now, things that are more permanent, that's really long-term planning that I don't have the answer to, but it is possible that it could show up in a distance view. And certainly for important events like rallying calls and things like that, if they involve dramatic changes in the world topology, we'll make sure that the distance rendering of that gets updated.
All right, so that's the end of the panel. I wanted to thank Miguel and Steve and Jeff for coming here to talk to us. Especially Miguel for coming to talk to us. If you have other questions, find us. We have more panels. We have one more tonight. We have more panels tomorrow, and then we have the Q&A for Landmark on Sunday right after the Dev Brunch. And if you see us in the hallways, just grab us. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next panel.